Hello, everyone, and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Hammond. We're live in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. Today, Donald Trump continues to move at a fevered pace. Meanwhile, one European nation takes notes. We'll bring you the latest on these and other stories from the U.S. and around the world. But first, a look at the headlines. A plane carrying 64 passengers collides mid-air with a military helicopter and crashes into Washington's Potomac River. Rescuers recover more than a dozen bodies after the crash. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says her government will lodge a complaint with Google after the tech giant said it will rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America for American users on its map service. Hamas releases 2 Israeli hostages, including a woman soldier, as a third hostage prisoner exchange gets underway. Hamas also releases 5 Thai nationals as part of the deal. The Philippines arrests 5 Chinese spies after detaining another Chinese national on charges of espionage earlier this month. The arrests occur as the feud between the two nations in the disputed South China Seas continues to escalate. And New York-based cybersecurity firm Wiz says Chinese AI startup DeepSeek left one of its crucial databases exposed on the internet, leaking system logs, user prompts, and other important information. We begin in the United States, where President Donald Trump says he will build a migrant detention facility at Guantanamo Bay for as many as 30,000 illegal immigrants. Now, according to the commander-in-chief, these migrants will be deported from the United States and would be high-priority criminals. In a White House memo, President Donald Trump ordered the Pentagon and the Department of Homeland Security to begin the official process for the detention center.
Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantanamo. This will double our capacity immediately, right? And that's a tough place to get out of.
Meanwhile, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said the detention center would be a temporary transit point for the deportees.
This is a temporary transit, which is already the mission of Naval Station Guantanamo Bay, where we can plus up thousands and tens of thousands if necessary to humanely move illegals out of our country where they do not belong back to the countries where they came from in proper process.
President Trump's border czar Tom Homan added that the U.S. government will expand its existing facility in Guantanamo Bay, which will be run by Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
The White House is working on to use resources that we currently have there at Guantanamo Bay. So we'll go through the process. The worst of the worst is where that could be utilized. So that potential is there. We know we need the infrastructure. We're going after these guys.
But who would run that? DHS or the Pentagon?
What you probably don't know, there's already a migrant center there. It's been there for decades. So we're just going to expand upon the existing migrant center.
Notably, the United States has been using a facility on the coast of Guantanamo Bay in Cuba for decades. This facility is known as the Guantanamo Migrant Operations Center and is located at the U.S. Naval Base. Now, to be clear, this is a different and separate facility from the high-security military prison in Guantanamo the U.S. houses suspected foreign terrorists. Meanwhile, Cuba, which protests against America's presence on its soil, wasted no time in denouncing President Trump's plan.
In a new act of brutality, a new government of the U.S. announces incarcerations of thousands of migrants forcibly expelled, and who will be located next to the known torture and illegal detention prisons at the Guantanamo Naval Base, which is illegally located in occupied Cuban territory.
Now, this criticism doesn't faze President Trump, who recently signed the Riley Act into law, which requires illegal immigrants arrested for crimes to stay in jail pending trial. Now, it's unclear if the facility would be enough to hold 30,000 migrants and how much the plan might actually cost. But what is clear is that the Trump administration is aggressively attempting to fulfill one of its key electoral promises in the first 100 days in office. And staying with the Trump administration, the president has signed an executive order promising action against international college students and others who took part in pro-Palestine protests during Israel's war in Gaza. His aggressive action aims to revoke visas of foreign students and prosecute offenders found to be Hamas sympathizers. The executive order also calls for the deportation of quote-unquote resident aliens who broke the law as part of the anti-Israel protests since the Hamas terror attack on October 7th of 2023.
Jewish students have faced an unrelenting barrage of discrimination, denial of access to campus common areas and facilities, including libraries and classrooms, and intimidation, harassment, and physical threats and assault.
Now, under the order, federal agencies have 60 days to produce a report to identify all actions to curb anti-Semitism at U.S. colleges and universities. The order also empowers these educational institutions to monitor and report such students to remove them from the institutions.
In addition to identifying relevant authorities to curb or combat anti-Semitism generally required by this section, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Education, and the Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with each other, shall include in their reports recommendations for familiarizing institutions of higher education with the grounds for inadmissibility, so that such institutions may monitor for and report activities by alien students and staff relevant to those grounds, and for ensuring that such reports about aliens lead, as appropriate and consistent with applicable law, to investigations and, if warranted, actions to remove such aliens.
Meanwhile, civil rights activists say President Trump's executive order is likely unconstitutional and paints peaceful protesters as terrorist sympathizers.
The Trump administration's attempt to smear the many Jewish, Muslim, Palestinian, and other college students who protested the Israeli government's genocide in overwhelmingly peaceful ways represents a dishonest, overbroad, and unenforceable attack on both free speech and the humanity of Palestinians, all for the sake of a foreign government. So is the administration's apparent threat to deport any foreign student who merely participated in anti-genocide protests.
Now, during his re-election campaign, Donald Trump accused the Biden administration of failing to stop anti-Israel protests on campus. However, the Biden administration opened more than 100 investigations into alleged anti-Semitism incidents at schools and universities after the Hamas attack on Israel. In fact, estimates suggest that more than 3,000 antagonists, including several students, were arrested across the country protesting the alleged genocide in Gaza. Several schools, including Harvard and Columbia, reached deals to settle these cases with the government before Donald Trump's return, fearing action and sanctions. And now moving to Europe, Sweden has announced plans to deport criminals serving their sentences to jails abroad. A government-appointed commission stated that the country's prisons are struggling to handle overcrowding. And in the last 5 years, the once quiet and peaceful Scandinavian nation has been plagued by shootings and bombings carried out by violent gangs. These gangs have caused homicide rates in Sweden to become some of the highest in Europe. And according to data from 2022 to 2023, there was at least one shooting every day, and Sweden now has some of the highest gun-related deaths in all of Europe. While Swedish police have made headway in cracking down on the gangs, it has led to overcrowding in prisons. Sweden is now in talks with fellow European nations to rent their prisons to transfer the criminals. Meanwhile, Sweden says that gangsters now make up nearly 5% of the country's population and are more often than not people born outside of Europe, second and third generation immigrants, or people struggling to find work and are at risk of poverty. As part of the crackdown, Sweden has begun restricting the entry of asylum seekers who are often recruited by the gangs.
The new statistics for 2024 show that when we add up refugees and their relatives, Sweden currently has the lowest asylum-related immigration since 1985, as far back as there is data. Overall, fewer and fewer residence permits are granted, while more residence permits, or a greater share, are granted to foreign experts and talents. The number of asylum seekers has so far decreased by 42% during the term of office, and we are also seeing an increase in returns to countries of origin. The efforts we have implemented have yielded results and will continue to yield results as we also roll out further reforms in the future.
Now, Sweden's current minority government is led by far-right and anti-immigration Sweden Democrats who won the election after promising to reduce immigration and gang crime, which they claim are linked.
I think it will need to continue to decrease. And above all, I think that the changes we have made must be sustained over time. It is clear that we now have a historically low asylum rate, but that should be put in relation to a number of years when it has been at very high levels. Too high levels, at a level where we have not had the conditions to be able to cope with integration.
The fact that last year there were 600 security threats.
Meanwhile, Sweden's plans to shift violent criminals to other nations comes just days after President Donald Trump proposed a similar plan. In fact, earlier this week, the commander-in-chief suggested the United States should send repeat criminal offenders to third nations for a small fee. As President Trump's crackdown on illegal migrants continues, right-wing governments in Europe are now taking notes and are shedding their image of being known as safe places for asylum seekers. And the AI race has entered a new phase, and the battleground is now global. Just a day after President Trump declared a crackdown on Chinese AI DeepSeek, Italy has followed suit, removing the Chinese app from stores and demanding answers on data privacy. Meanwhile, just like in Rome, tensions remain high in Washington, and lawmakers are debating how to counter China's rapid AI advancements. Is this part of a tech Cold War? And what does it mean for the future of AI? We have more in our next report.
The battle lines are drawn. Less than 24 hours after President Donald Trump declared a crackdown on DeepSeek AI, calling it a wake-up call, one of America's closest allies in Europe is stepping in. Italy has followed Washington's lead, putting the Chinese AI app under intense scrutiny.
Our office will launch an in-depth investigation to see if European Union data protection regulations are being respected.
The app, once the most downloaded in the United States and the United Kingdom, is now vanishing from European app stores. And in Italy, users trying to install it on Apple's App Store and Google Play are met with cryptic error messages. Currently not available in your region, says one. Download not supported, reads another. But this isn't just about an app. Italy's data watchdog, Garante, has drawn the gauntlet, demanding answers. Who owns the data? Where is it stored? Is it being sent back to China? The Chinese AI company has 20 days to respond or face consequences. Meanwhile, in the US, DeepSeek has exploded into a political firestorm. Trump, speaking to House Republicans in Miami, made it clear this is war.
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser focused on competing to win, because we have the greatest scientists in the world. Even Chinese leadership told me that.
And his new executive order is already shaking things up, scrapping Biden-era AI policies and setting a new aggressive course.
What this showed is that our export controls, not backed by tariffs, are like a whack-a-mole model where they get prevented over here and China figures out a way around it over there. We've got to find a way to back our export controls with tariff model so that we tell China, you think we are your most important trading partner. When we say no, the answer is no. It's a respect thing. They've disrespected us. They've figured out their ways around it. I do not believe that DeepSeek was done all above board. That's nonsense, okay? They stole things, they broke in, they've taken our IP. It's gotta end, and I'm going to be rigorous in our pursuit of restrictions and enforcing those restrictions to keep us in the lead, because we must stay in the lead.
And what about Silicon Valley? It's rattled. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman finally broke his silence. In a post on X, he acknowledged DeepSeek's power. An impressive model, he admitted, but he wasn't worried. We will obviously deliver much better models, he assured his followers. But behind the bravado, there's tension. The US intelligence officials are alarmed. They've warned for many years that China is racing ahead in AI, not just for business, but for military and intelligence purposes. The FBI has already placed AI on its list of critical technologies. And now OpenAI is investigating whether DeepSeek distilled its models, shrinking down a larger AI into a cheaper, faster version. If true, it would mean China has figured out a way to sidestep American innovation. Experts are divided on what to do next, while some believe DeepSeek acquired NVIDIA chips on the black market. Slipping through America's export restrictions, others point to Beijing's deep pockets.
So they have been proving themselves to be able to come up with great solutions because of either innovation or even if you say cutting corners, but coming up with very competitive products or results in the past, in the history of Chinese industry and even manufacturing. So I don't think we should be too surprised about this particular DeepSeek finding. What is more important is now how would the US respond?
But beyond technology and politics, there's something deeper at play. Unlike American models, DeepSeek refuses to discuss the darker chapters of China's history. No mention of human rights abuses, no talk of censorship, just a clean, polished version of reality. And as it spreads, that version could become the default.
I'd say it's about 80% functionality relative to ChatGPT, maybe relative to Meta's Llama. There's some strengths, some areas of weakness in terms of what they're able to do. But functionally, a lot of this AI revolution is really on enterprise use cases. And even though this is a really good model, unless this thing could scale, what I'll call about 10x, it's going to be tough to see how there's any sort of competitive wave that's sent from an enterprise perspective to US tech.
The AI race is no longer about just building better models. It's about who controls the story and the narrative. And right now, the battle is just beginning.
And finally, Barron Trump is into the second semester of his freshman year at the New York University. Known for his towering 6'7" frame and reserved demeanor, he's stepping away from a sheltered upbringing into the bustling chaos of campus life. However, Barron's high school years were marked by constant Secret Service protection, even during bathroom breaks. Strangely, he also never ate lunch at school and attended classes using a fake name. But will college life be any different? As the youngest Trump tries to balance being the president's son and an NYU student, our final report brings you more.
Very tall son named Barron. Has anyone ever heard of him?
At 18, Barron Trump is stepping out of the shadows and into the spotlight with the second semester of his freshman year at the New York University's Stern School of Business. It's a bold move for the youngest son of President Donald Trump, who spent much of his life guarded by security, secrecy, and a heavy dose of public curiosity. And now Barron is trading that carefully controlled world for the unpredictable rhythms of Manhattan. And the new commander-in-chief recently shared the news with pride, calling his son a very high-aptitude child. But Barron is no longer just the kid in the background at political events. He's carving his own academic path, choosing NYU over the family-favored Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. However, Barron's high school years at Oxbridge Academy in Florida were anything but ordinary. Attending under the pseudonym Jack, he was shadowed by Secret Service agents at every step, even during bathroom breaks.
He had multiple agents who would rotate throughout the day, and there was always one with him wherever he needed to go. The agents would stand right outside the door during class. If he went to the bathroom, they would go with him and wait outside.
Teachers signed non-disclosure agreements, and Barron's name never made it into the yearbook. Security at his May 2024 graduation was so intense that it even involved snipers and metal detectors. Despite standing at a towering 6'7", Barron managed to maintain a low profile.
I don't think he met up with anyone outside of school or went on dates. Barron never got a chance to enjoy a normal high school life like everyone else.
He never attended school dances, football games or social events. Even his lunch routine was unusual. Though he sat with friends, he never ate at school.
He'd wait until he got home. It was odd, but no one really questioned it.
Now at NYU, Barron's arrival has sparked whispers and curiosity. Some students are eager to know if his political upbringing will shape his college experience. "He'll probably become more liberal if he wants to date anyone here," joked one student, while others are more open-minded. "His dad is his dad, Barron is his own person," one classmate remarked. Soccer, however, remains a constant in Barron's life. Trump confirmed his son's plan to continue playing in college, a continuation of his time with DC United's youth teams. But the big question lingers. Will Barron live on campus or commute from the Trump Tower, which is just a short distance away? NYU, known for its progressive atmosphere, offers Barron a chance to step away from his carefully curated past. His classmates, intrigued by the idea of Secret Service agents roaming on campus, wonder if the mysterious sign will finally let his guard down. So as Barron stands at the edge of newfound independence, one thing is certain. He is no longer just the youngest Trump. Whether he thrives or retreats, his journey promises to be anything but ordinary. And perhaps that's exactly what he's been waiting for.
That's First Post America for this Thursday. I'm Eric Ham from our studios in Washington, D.C. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.